I'm going to compare these guitars and explore how each of them defies their own brand stereotypes and show how perfection doesn't necessarily have to come at the expense of soul. PRS versus Gibson is a hotly debated subject among guitarists, and the argument goes something like this. PRS has near perfect build quality and design, but as a result, lacks some soul and character. Meanwhile, Gibson has its flaws, and its flaws are actually what's providing some of its unique soul and character of sound. Now, I think there's some truth to this. However, I don't fully buy into the narrative that quality and sound have to come as a trade-off. And at the very least, I hope to showcase why following that narrative too literally isn't very helpful and even wrong in some instances. And to do so, I've crafted several original musical motifs inspired by each of these guitars to demonstrate how they sound from dirty to delicate. And I've also acquired several new tools per some of your suggestions to help illustrate the specs and playability of each guitar. So we'll get into the details around weights, neck profiles, and neck depth. So I'll take you through the 5 sound comparisons, dive deep into the key specs, and then I'll conclude on what I've learned about each of these guitars by not following conventional wisdom. But up first, let's check out that opening solo played on the Gibson Les Paul Murphy Lab. Jam on that backing track yourself and take a free lesson on how to play my solo, click on the link to my Patreon in the description box below. Patreon is where you can access deeper insights into things you've been asking for, like my tone, my gear, and my playing approach. And the backing track, lesson, and tabs for this solo are up there for free as a thank you for helping me get to 10,000 subs recently. So for the sound samples, I'm going to play through 5 different scenes and demonstrate a wide range of playing styles and tones. The first scene is going to be straight in to the amp, and I'm going to use my Cartel Star set on the verge of breakup with a touch of reverb from the amp. And I will play through the neck, middle, and bridge positions of each guitar. So I thought both guitars had plenty of sustain. I did notice that the fullness of the note seemed to hold on a little bit longer with the PRS. I thought both guitars had plenty of character. I heard some nice chirp, knock, and metallic pang out of both guitars, and maybe even a little more so coming out of the PRS than the Gibson, surprising enough. But I'm curious to know how you were hearing it. So let's hear how these guitars can handle some dirt. I'm going to switch over to my 2-Rock Bloomfield drive and stack Noble's ODR1 with a Vemoram Shanks ODS1 for a more medium gain tone. And let's see how the bridge pickups compare playing some classic rock riffage in the key of B. And so this is one of the first big eye-opening moments for me. Les Pauls are known to have a more raw and edgier tone, so I thought for sure the Les Paul would beat out the PRS in this scenario. However, I found that the PRS had just as much grind and attitude as the Les Paul did. I even listened back blind, and it was difficult to discern any differences between the two guitars. And so I think this highlights that there's an exception to every rule. So I would encourage you to listen to it blind as well and let me know if you could hear any difference. So let's check out the more delicate end of the spectrum. I'm going to use some light overdrive with my Vemram Janray into the 2-rock, and I'm going to focus in on the neck position and the middle position. And this comparison surprised me as well, but for a very different reason than the last one. It's said that PRS have a clearer and more refined sound, and I think that was showcased here in spades. However, I felt like the Les Paul held its own with this delicate, nuanced part. I did hear some of its edginess poking through in some instances, especially with that neck pickup, but I actually found it to be a quite nice characteristic. I actually don't know which guitar I would choose in this scenario. Let me know what your preference was and why. So on to one of my favorite Eric Johnson inspired creamy lead tones. I'll be using my BK Butler tube driver into my Vemram Janray into the 2-rock. And conventional wisdom here would say that higher gain like this would mask any tonal differences between the two guitars, but I beg to differ. Struck me about the PRS in this scenario is that I found it clearer than the Les Paul, yet it had just as much chirp, power, and bite as the Les Paul did. So this was really a best of both worlds outcome for me. I found that the Les Paul had a bigger low end, which can be a strength in some scenarios, but in this scenario, I would reach for the PRS. Let me know which one you would reach for. So many of you have asked how I get that particular EJ-inspired lead tone, and I've done videos on it in the past. However, this time, what you were hearing was a Tone X capture of my high-end guitar rig playing my EJ-inspired guitar tone, and I was blown away with the accuracy and how the Tone X feels under my fingers. So I'm thinking of doing Tone X captures of all the tones I use in my videos and making those available in the future. So in the meantime, I'm going to post an A/B comparison on my Patreon between the Tone X EJ-inspired lead tone and the original using my high-end guitar rig. So go check that out and let me know if you can hear any differences. Let me know if you're a Tone X user, and let me know what of my tones you would like to see me capture the most. So it's time to compare both guitars in the context of a full mix. I'll play the intro solo on each guitar and A/B between them as it goes, and let me know what differences you can hear. So a quick story behind this guitar before we go to the specs. I've enjoyed listening to Jonathan, Baxter, and Sean of Casino Guitars on their YouTube channel, and we were driving through North Carolina over Memorial Day weekend. We had to stop off and check out the shop. And this ended up being a complete impulse buy. I was not seeking out another 59 inspired guitar build. However, it caught my eye. I've always loved McCarty Sunburst, and the guitar had a really unique reverse chevron flame pattern that looked private stock grade. And so I plucked it off the wall, and I was immediately struck by the acoustic voice of the instrument. It had character and soul. Even acoustically, it had a loud chirp and cluck and knock to it. And I just had to plug it in. So they happen to have a car Telstar. Those are made in North Carolina as well. And I'm very familiar with the amp and use it here in my demos. And the guitar sounded fantastic. It was decided the guitar is coming home with me. And so unfortunately the guys weren't in that holiday weekend, but the staff was really helpful, and it's a kind of shop I love to go to where they let you just pick anything off the wall that you like and play it. That's a great sales model because it results in impulse buys like this one. I did get to speak with Sean on the phone later on about shipping details, and we had a nice conversation. He sent this cool handwritten note. I appreciate that. It's a lost art form, casino guitar sticker. The building used to be a casino back in the day. And he sent Rose and I a couple of really cool casino t-shirts. So thank you, Sean. Let's get into the specs. I'm not going to do an exhaustive list of all the specs, but focus more in on the key specs as they relate to playability. If you're interested in going deep into the specs, I would recommend checking out Dylan Adams' video comparing the Les Paul and 594 specs in great detail. I don't know Dylan, but he's a tremendous player and he's done an excellent video on this subject, and I'll drop the link to that video down in the description below. And so to kick this off, I wanted to read a comment by Alexander11.11. Alexander says, "Please show the neck of your guitars in deeper detail and tell us a bit more about it. I think the neck of a guitar is very essential, and also believe that it accounts for at least 25% of the tone and certainly 70% of the playing feel. I always miss the time for the back and especially the neck in videos like this." So thanks, Alexander, for the comment and input. That led to us having an exchange about how to go about this, and the idea came up to acquire some various tools to help demonstrate the neck depth and the neck profile. So let's start with the neck depth. I have a digital caliper here. And we'll start with the PRS 594. What I've done here is I've calibrated the caliper for this little piece of metal, so I don't have to remove the strings in order to do this. So you can see I've just placed the strap button there. And we'll take the measurement. It's coming in at 22.6 millimeters. And the Les Paul 59 Murphy Lab, that's coming in at 23.6 millimeters. I was quite surprised by that measurement. The 59 Murphy Lab has quite a deeper neck carve than the 594. As for the neck profile, PRS describes their neck as their vintage pattern carve, and there's some asymmetry up and down the neck, whereas Gibson describes the current rendition of 59s, this is a 2024, have their authentic rounded C profile, and it feels like it has a little more shoulders than the 594 as well. Still a C shape, but let's see what we can pick up using this StewMac profiling gauge. We'll do the 59 at the first fret. Just eyeing the carve, it does look very symmetrical, very much a standard C-shaped carve. Let's check out the 594. Looks like it might have a little less shoulders, but I'll do a side-by-side photo of each of these. I don't know if this is helpful, but let me know what you guys think. So up next, let's check out the weights. The 594 does feel ever so slightly lighter than the Murphy Lab, but let's put them on the scale. So the Murphy Lab is coming in around 9 pounds and 0.2 ounces. So let's call that 9 pounds. Whereas the 594 is coming in around 8 pounds, 8.2 ounces. So let's call this 8 pounds, 8 ounces. About a half a pound lighter than the Murphy Lab Les Paul. So pretty substantial if weight is an important factor to you. But these are just two particular examples. You can find many examples of these guitars being well above or under these different weights. The last spec I'm going to talk about is string action and setup. I personally go for as low action as I can get without buzzing out when plugged in to an amp. I dialed in the setup on both these guitars and got it as low as I could to achieve those objectives. And this was an area that I was surprised by because I think the results also buck conventional wisdom. In theory, the 594, with PRS's reputation for impeccable build, I thought I would be able to dial this one in with lower action than the Les Paul. So let's see where it came in. The 594, I was able to dial it in at around 1.25 millimeters on the low bass at the 12th fret and 1.25 millimeters on the high E string at the 12th fret as well. I think that's considered a low action and the guitar plays very comfortably. And for the Les Paul, this is coming in lower. I got this dialed in at 1 millimeter on the low E, and believe it or not, I have it dialed in at 0.75 millimeters on the high E string at the 12th fret. And so that's a pretty substantial difference in action between both guitars. Now, both play extremely well and were easy to dial in, but I was able to deck the Les Paul's action super low with no issue, and I couldn't get quite that low on the Paul Reed Smith. And I think that goes against conventional wisdom as well. I would have assumed the 594 could have decked that one lower than the Gibson. But the fact that I could get the action that low on the Gibson without any fret buzzing goes to show you that despite their legacy and reputation of poor quality control, they do make some excellent guitars that you can really dial in to your preference. And so in conclusion, I think there's three things that this experience emphasized for me. And none of them are revolutionary, but they're important to keep top of mind when you're searching for your perfect guitar. Number one is to get out there and try these guitars for yourself. Number two is not letting conventional wisdom bias your decision-making process. And number three is to judge each instrument based on its own merits. There are exceptions to every rule. And in this case, I found the PRS to have way more character than conventional wisdom would lead one to believe. I also found that the Murphy Lab could be set up far more precisely than conventional wisdom may lead one to believe. Additionally, the Murphy Lab, I thought, shined in a delicate context, and at the same time, the 594 had no problem keeping up in a rock context. And of course, these are just two examples of PRS and Gibson guitars, and this video is not meant to conclude that all PRS and Gibsons share these attributes. I think YouTube demos are great for helping one hone in on their consideration set, but I always encourage you to go try these guitars out for yourselves. You may find some of them live up to the conventional wisdom, and others just might surprise you. And so I would love to hear from you. Have you had a similar experience where you've encountered a guitar that bucked the conventional wisdom? Let me know. In the meantime, thank you for watching. To support further, visit my Patreon for deeper content and Bandcamp for my original music. See you in the next one.